Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm very lucky to be here today and very, very excited. So I'm just going to share my company's experience with creatives. And I will talk about how we try to optimize our creative production, testing, and launch strategy. I will go step by step and share some tips with you. Marked, okay. Uh, just for a quick brief, Apps is a mobile gaming company from Turkey, which specializes in developing and publishing hyper-casual and hybrid casual games. Our most popular games are Fashion Battle and Drill and Collect. And I'm working for Apps for 2 years now as a UA manager, and I have more than 3 years of performance marketing experience in different industries, from e-commerce to retail. So, before we start, I want to share a funny, maybe unfortunate story with you. Same time last year, my best friend and I decided to meet in Poland, where he lives. So I booked my ticket and end up in Warsaw. So we decided to meet for the breakfast on the next day. And in the morning, when he shared the location of the restaurant with me, it was 4 hours away. I mixed up Wrocław and Warsaw and end up in here. So don't be me. And let's move on with today's topic, apps and our creatives. Apps is a marketing team of 7 people. It's 4 artists, 2 UA managers, and a CMO. And every creative production except UGC is in-house. And let's look how the creative production and testing process. We see the creative production in 2 ways. One is creating something from zero, which requires new ideas and concepts. And the other one is iterating the existing ones. For the new ideas, we come up with 2 ways. First one is, as a UA team, we do monthly workshops and focus on competitor analysis. We try to find new hooks and end cards. And our marketing artists, obviously, they use their imagination, and also they use AI inputs to find new concepts. And also, they do trend searches on socials. And for the iterations, we try to change anything that matters. And as we saw, like these all the things that matters: hooks, end cards, sound effects, music, concept, and localization. And we also use tools to change certain parameters in our creatives. To give an example of a successful iteration, by just changing the sound effect for one creative concept, we achieved 37% improvement on IPM. Here are some examples of different hooks for our game Drill and Collect. And can you guess which one is more successful than the others? Can you hear it? Yeah. Let's watch the last one. This one is my favorite. Okay, so when we tested these videos on an SDK network, coming first, the one with the Dyson hook, got the highest IPM with 26.5. Following that, the Your Dep video got 20.2. And the last one was very surprising to me, got 12.88. And here are examples for different concepts. So all four of the videos has the same gameplay and sounds, but they serve with different concepts. Let's watch them. I know they're all the same, but okay. So when we tested these videos again on an SDK network, the clean mind concept got the highest IPM with 23.88. Following that, the ASMR mobile games got 20.83. The third one was Piece in Every Piece by 20.23, and the last one got the lowest one with 16.22. So let's move on with creative testing. Testing correctly will give you extra dollars you can spend on UA and some insights to understand creative concepts. It's really hard to trust your testing process when the winner is not the actual winner all the time, because the new creatives, when you add them to the campaigns, are not scaling as well. So as apps, we don't have a suggestion for that point, but we have some suggestions for the creative testing process. The first one is defining your target market and choosing the correct test geo. I know that like most of you do this, but we have something in there, like maybe you can change your testing countries periodically just to get some insights about different countries. So like us, if your main target is US, you can go for the countries like Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia, or India. And the second one is choosing the correct test platform. For me, I think this is the most important one, because not every creative concept may be suitable for every network. For example, a user scrolling on TikTok is there to entertain themselves with the content created by other people. So a user playing game is there to play a game and take an action. So it means that we cannot expect them to be same users or even have same intentions at that moment. So different creatives should be created for different platforms and should be tested on different platforms. As apps, we recommend using minimum one social and one SDK network. And this is a perfect example of why you shouldn't trust one test platform. Let's take a look. While this creative showed 63% IPM regression compared to the control group on an SDK network, it performed 39% better than a control group on a social network. So, the third point with testing is the importance of the control group. You should use the creatives that currently work on your UA campaigns, not the creatives that performed well on your latest test results, because the test results doesn't always align with your current UA campaigns. And you cannot expect the same control group creatives for different networks, because the best performers are different. And the last one is, you should try to find a way to calculate what matters, and not only consider IPM. IPM is a great parameter for a successful creative, but other than that, there are much more metrics like ROAS, retention, improvement ratio, even metrics like CPM and CTR. You can use that metrics to calculate a performance score for a creative and just compare them with each other. So after we have the creatives with good test results, it's time to launch those creatives on different networks. When launching these creatives, we follow some best practices of the industry besides the practices that we develop in our company. The best practices of the industry. They are usually common for SDK networks, which creative learning algorithms are similar, but it's recommended to refresh every creatives every 2 to 3 weeks and use videos with playable end cards. But for the social networks, we cannot say that this is the case, because the creative learning process may be longer or shorter than a SDK network. And for socials, there are not many placements for playables to be shown. And more different example is Google, because it combines more creative elements compared to the other channels, and each creative type and spec, maybe a combination of that, can be the best practice for your game. Here, I grouped some popular UA networks, which I believe could have a similar creative strategy. And Unity, for example, Unity and Iron Source are similar for the best practice of number of creative sets, which is recommended, I think, 8 to 10 sets each. And the SPs are similar because they're all the same, and they work better with playables. And TikTok and Snapchat, the campaign's performance is directly correlated with the creative. You just see creatives work better, and you should look the metrics like CPM and CTR. And for Meta and Google, they are both unique when it comes to creatives. So let's dive in how to read signals for when to refresh your creatives. First of all, as I said before, not every network might need change every 2 to 3 weeks. For networks that doesn't follow industry practices, there will be 2 different sides. The first one is when you see a significant decline trend on your ROAS. And the other one is when the low performer and the low impression creatives started to get more impression. It means that the algorithm is reactivated. So you can read those signs as a time for change, but as a note, if something is going good, don't touch it, especially Google. So the second one is if you're having a hard time to define your change points by your ROAS, you can consider creative learning algorithms, creative learning periods for networks. For example, AppLovin creative learning requires only 500 impressions, very low. But if something didn't work after 500 impressions, it's probably not going to work. So for TikTok, this is like something very special. Its algorithm knows if a creative will success before you add the creative. So give all the impression to that creative. So it might need frequent refresh, because you can just point the creatives, getting impression and not doing well. In conclusion, you can develop your own strategy using your historical data or creative learning periods for networks. When it comes to how to refresh creatives, there's 2 points: number of creatives to be added and number of creatives to be paused. About the number of creatives to be added, you must consider networks' recommendations and never add more, because it might extend your learning period and your performance. We usually add 2 to 3 new creative sets each time to every network. At this point, budget should be your main concern, because if you don't have enough budget per creative and per day, you should not any creatives maybe. For example, the recommended budget per creative is minimum $100 a day for SDK networks. About the number of creatives to be paused, there is no strict numbers that we saw, but we usually add and remove the same amount of creatives. And there's 2 things that we observe about the number of creatives to be paused. If there's no good performer, you can replace all the creatives, because the performance is not good and you don't have nothing to lose. And the second one is, you should not delete, we learned it in the hard way, you should not delete the creative with high impression for social network. Here's the data for a campaign on Meta. Shows that after we pause the creative with high impression, even if it had low IPM and ROAS, it caused the campaign to enter learning phase, and here are CPIs. So, I mentioned before that Google has a special place when it comes to creatives. Let's talk about what we do take into consideration and what works for our Google App campaigns. We follow similar practices, but let's dive in what are those in terms of Google. First one is self-crowding. I don't know if any of you heard of that before. It's creative cannibalization. It means that you should limit the number of your creatives, especially videos, in your campaign according to your budget. So adding 20 images, it's recommended by Google that you should use your limits. Add 20 images, 20 HTMLs, and 20 videos to your campaign. But it might be too much for your current budget, because Google's algorithms tend to give each creative an amount of impression to learn, and to combinations too. So if you have low budget per campaign or per ad group, it will, the creatives will compete with themselves to get impression, and this will cause a longer learning period, lower performance, and lower spends. The second one is trusting the campaign with giving performance information, because you don't have any other option. Google will say if a creative is learning or performing good or bad. So you can check the campaign constantly, maybe every week like we do, and delete the low performer creatives from a campaign. And this way, I think it's easier to point the update periods. And the last, but very important thing, is to consider your store page. Big part of Google creatives are done automatically based on assets from your Google playlisting. So optimizing your store has a strong influence on your Google App campaigns. So, for example, the keywords that you target on your store listing and the keywords that you ranked on your Google Play Store will be the keywords that your campaign shown on search results. So, following them, here are the best practices that we saw for our Google App campaigns. It requires minimum $500 budget per 4 to 5 unique video. Every creative type and every spec is very important. You should try to have at least one square, landscape, and portrait video and banner, and minimum one short and long description. And you should divide your ad groups by creative concepts. For example, a UGC creative and gameplay creative should be in different ad groups. And the last one, but very important one, is you should avoid any policy issue in your account. If a creative still has an issue, after you appeal them for once, you should kill the creative and delete it from the account. Even if you have a paused ad group in your account that has a policy issue, it will affect your ad account quality and then your campaign serving. By implementing these practices for a target ROAS campaign, without changing the ROAS target, we managed to increase the spend of our campaign by 80% and installs by 64%. So despite the fact that our eCPI has increased 10%, Our day 7 and day 60 ROAS has increased 10% too. And the surprising point for us too, even if we didn't change the number of images and HTMLs in our campaign, the video share of voice has increased 8%. So the key takeaways from this presentation is, for creative production, you should try to combine distinctive parameters. For creative testing, there should be a right testing platform for different creatives. And for creative optimization, just try to find what works for your company. And thank you for listening to me. And I'm ready to answer your questions.